Cardinals baseball, will they ever lose a baseball game? Okay, we complain for 3-4 months straight, and now this team, they're just running through everybody. And they're not running through the Pirates and the Diamondbacks and teams of that ilk. Now they're running through the Reds and last night the Brewers, and they're hanging with the Dodgers. And the Cardinals, red hot, winners of 9 straight games, 11 games over 500 at 80-69. Still have a 3-game lead over the Reds for that second wild card. Now 4 games over San Diego. San Diego's done. I think the Cardinals put the final nail in San Diego's coffin. Philadelphia 4.5 games out. But to me, it's still coming down to the Cardinals and the Reds, and now you have a 3-game lead. And now when the Cardinals play, even if they're facing Peralta, Woodruff, Burns, you just get the sense they're going to win these games. They win last night 5-2. John Lester, his 200th career win. He's been really, really good for the Cardinals after 2 rough starts to start his Cardinals tenure. But right now, this team is clicking on all cylinders, Jim, at the perfect time when you need to roll some momentum into the playoffs.
I don't know why everybody's so surprised. I mean, I told you a long time ago this team was going to get hot and win this thing. No, it is an amazing turnaround, to say the least. We're in the middle of what could be an unbelievable story. I think that's the cool part about where it's at. Tonight, I kind of, if I'm going to put any money down on anything tonight regarding the Cardinals, I might go in. I think the streak might end tonight. Woodford versus Woodruff. But here's the thing. If it goes the other way, you go, wait a minute, there's something really weird, and maybe a higher power has something going on here. But what they've accomplished so far is pretty amazing. And like you said, look, last night, the first 2 batters are the what is it? It was the first 2 batters last night. Yeah, it was. That Peralta faced, you went, oh, my gosh, he may throw a no-hitter tonight, right? I mean, he just blew away Edmund and Goldschmidt. You went, it's going to be rough. I think it ends tonight. Then, O'Neill finds a way to get on after 2 strikes, and bang, there's a home run by Arenado. And it starts up again. You're like, yep, we're for real, baby. We're for real. I mean, it has been that magical of a situation with this baseball team right now. They do everything right. I mean, they're pitching right. The bullpen comes in and finishes off things every time. Situational hitting last night, driving in the extra runs to put that distance between them and Milwaukee were huge. Every little thing is perfect right now. So don't wake them up.
How about this when you look at the pitching for last night for the Cardinals? So John Lester goes 6 innings, 2 earned runs. He's been a stabilizing force, as I mentioned, after his rough couple starts when he first came over. And then what did we talk about bullpen-wise for the majority of this season? Even when we were praising, as we should have, the law firm of Genesis Cabrera, Alex Reyes, and Gio Gallegos, it was that for the Cardinals to win a baseball game, if it wasn't an Adam Wainwright start, they had to use all 3 of those guys usually. They had to use all 3 of those guys to win a baseball game. And then they were probably used too much where their numbers started to deteriorate. And look, they were having to pitch in almost every game that the Cardinals had a chance to win for a long time, and there were a lot of those games. And that's why when you watch the game last night and then you look at the box score, how about the fact that you went into Milwaukee, you beat a Brewers team that's in first place, and the Brewers really want to win 2 out of 3 in this series because they would then clinch the National League Central. Wouldn't they love to do that against the Cardinals at home, have their celebration and all that? But you're able to beat a very good pitcher in Freddie Peralta, who has a 2.65 ERA, who struck out 9 in that game, and you roll out Big John Lester, the old man, and who did you have finish that game off? Not Cabrera, not Reyes, not Gio. Gio has pitched a lot lately. You used Cody Whitley, TJ McFarland, and Luis Garcia. In a game where you're rolling, you're playing the first place team, it's a save situation throughout, it's only a 3-run game, and you use Whitley, McFarland, and Garcia and they shut the door. That says a lot because for a while there, the Cardinals had no chance to win a baseball game if they weren't rolling out Cabrera, Reyes, and Gallegos almost every single night.
There was a time, and I want to say it was, let's say, end of May, first couple of weeks of June. I don't think, and I got to remember when Whitley went back down. None of those guys were on the roster. I mean, think about that for a minute. Yeah. To your point, Lester was not a Cardinal. McFarland was not a Cardinal. Garcia was somebody's minor league system too. And I think Whitley had already been sent back down. I mean, that is a super impressive get. And it was a good quality pitch game. It wasn't like it was a 10-9 game where you go, well, wait, all these guys just came. No, these are guys that are contributing night in, night out through the pen and giving the manager more options, which is what we screamed for back in June. Got to give this guy more options. None of these guys can get anybody out. It's part of the storyline where, at this point, everything that's plugged into the next equation turns up aces for this team right now. It's pretty amazing.
And John Lester, he has now pitched, I'm counting here, 10 appearances for the Cardinals. His first couple, as we know, were not good. He starts out August 3rd. He goes 5 innings, allows 6 earned runs. Next outing, 5 1/3, 5 earned runs versus the Royals. So since then, in his 8 starts since, he has pitched, I would say, really well or dang good in 7 out of 8 of them. So since coming over, in 10 starts, he's only had 3 that you'd say were poor. The first 2 I mentioned, and then his 4th start versus Milwaukee, he goes 4 1/3 and allows 4 earned runs. The other ones, here's his lines. 5 2/3, 1 earned. 5 innings, 1 earned. 6 1/3, 1 earned. 5 1/3, 1 earned. 7, 2 earned. 6, 2 earned. 6 innings, 2 earned runs. Could you have asked for anything more than that from a guy who came over from Washington with a 5 ERA, where I expected some volatility, which we saw early on, but since then, he's giving you a chance to win every single night. I haven't mentioned any more games where, and by the way, even his early outings, he went 5 innings. And I'm not saying you should applaud him for that, but what was happening, Jim, before that? It was Johan Oviedo going 3 2/3 and allowing 4 runs or 5 runs. It was John Gant towards the end of his run as a starter going 4 innings and allowing 4 runs. You were killing the bullpen. And John Lester is going deep into games now where his last 3 games, he's gone 7 innings, 6 innings, 6 innings. I don't think anybody expected that when he came over.
Absolutely not. I mean, I sat here and told you what they expect is a veteran guy to go 5 innings and just punt after that. I mean, that's really what we were expecting out of those. Look, they had ERAs of 5 and 6 or 7, whatever it was when they got here. They weren't very good then. But the only reason, well, one of the reasons that they were acquired was they were veterans who could at least be good enough when they got themselves into trouble to last 5 innings. That was the bottom line. They desperately couldn't get guys, the Gants, the Oviedos that we talked about. Those guys, once they blew up in the 3rd inning, they couldn't get to the 5th. So each night you're going, well, we need 2 more innings out of somebody. So the whole process was, well, I'll throw these guys 100 pitches regardless, and we'll just take our chances. Well, everything has turned up roses.
And I don't know this. I've only spoken with John Lester one time since he's been a Cardinal here in person. But you wonder if the way he was pitching this year with the Washington Nationals, he's 37 years old. He'll be 38 in January. You wonder, and he would probably say this, and maybe he says this offseason, if he decides to play or not to play. But I wonder if he was trending towards retirement. And now, being with the Cardinals, having a lot of success with a team that's probably going to make the playoffs, even if it's just a second wild card, and Yadi's coming back. Waino's coming back. You got a bunch of guys who are your age. You're pitching in a great pitcher's ballpark. Doesn't he seem like a guy where, look, you could give him a 1 or 2 year deal, and maybe it's going to be for 8, 9, 10 million a year, whatever it is. Isn't he the type of guy you want to bring back now? And it's not just like, okay, you're going to bring him back for some depth. Like, I think if John Lester is your 5th starter, your 4th starter next year, a horse who can give you innings you can rely on, I mean, I think that's a great option for the Cardinals.
It's interesting the way you put it, because right now he's the 2 starter. Because he's expected, if Waino has to pitch the last day, he's going to pitch the wild card game. But to your point, I think it's an interesting thing to discuss because, one, look, I still, as good as he's been, I still don't think of John Lester as a Cardinal. You're like, oh, that's John Lester, the guy who beat the Cardinals, right? You still think of that conversation. I asked Derek Gould about this a couple weeks ago. I said, if he continues to trend upward, would you consider bringing him back? And he brought up something that I thought was interesting. He goes, keep this in mind. And time may change this and success and how this team comes together. He goes, John Lester did not choose the Cardinals. He was traded here. And it kind of, led to like, yeah, he's got to want to come back too. There is that part of it. And I know he said in part of his Zoom last night, he goes, it has been weird getting used to the situation, but if they go on a run, and they have success here. And let's face it, he has admitted that part of his success that he's having now is directly related to working with Yanni, watching Waino, learning from him, and everything that's going on around here. You would think he would consider it, and the Cardinals definitely have to consider it, especially if he, obviously money and terms and all that have to be discussed. But why would you not right now if he continues to do this? Now, he could blow up the last 3 weeks and go, oh, yeah, okay, backed up to 6 ERA. That is what he is. But we'll see.
It is funny because the first, let's say, couple weeks, the discussion was, well, maybe they should bring back J. Happ, right?
Right.
Because J. Happ was really good for his first, 3-4 outings.
The last couple have been a little dicey.
He's been dicey. And remember, too, Happ came in with about a 7 ERA, and Lester was more around 5. And that's a big difference. That is a big difference. I'm not saying Lester was coming over as the Cy Young winner, but a 5 ERA these days is not terrible. Honestly, I know back in the day a 5 ERA is awful, but nowadays 5, okay, for a 37-year-old guy. And it's funny because you say that John Lester still doesn't look right as a Cardinal, and I tweeted this right when John Lester was traded here, and right when we saw him in the uniform for the first time. He both looks like a guy who absolutely shouldn't be a St. Louis Cardinal, but I say that specifically because we know him as a Red Sox from the 2013 World Series, and we know him as a Cubs player for all those years, pitching against the Cardinals and winning the 2016 World Series with the Cubs. But then when you see him in a Cardinals uniform, even though he's only made 10 starts, everything about his persona, being a veteran, being 37 years old, he has that understated, soft-spoken, even though he's from the state of Washington, he reminds me of a guy from the South. So everything about him actually,
Texas,
right?
Yeah.
And I say that as a compliment. Everything about him exudes the St. Louis Cardinal player that we always talk about. We always mention if you're looking for a trade, if you're looking for a free agent, who are the guys we always say, oh, they're just St. Louis Cardinals? It's the Paul Goldschmidts of the world. It's the Nolan Arenados of the world. It's Lance Berkman type players. And John Lester fits into that mold.
Mental toughness, goes out and does his thing. He's not demonstrative out there on the mound, just does his thing. He's got that super intensity when he's there. Don't talk to him. Don't bother him. Yeah, you're right about that in terms of everything that Cardinal fans have gotten to know as guys who were Cardinals. Yeah, I think that was, not to bring this name up out of the blue, but that's one of the reasons why a guy like Carlos Martinez got on people's nerves who were Cardinal fans. He's not like the rest of these guys. He's out there yucking it up, but he's not a Cardinal. I mean, there is that truth, too. They're completely opposite type guys, but that's part of the reason why when you say Lester seems like a Cardinal, I would agree with that.
And I think you mentioned Carlos Martinez.
No, he's not coming back, people.
Right, he's not coming back. Carlos Martinez, there was always all of the quirkiness going on with Carlos Martinez because that's his personality. And in a lot of ways, that's positive. He's very passionate, right? He pitches and plays with a lot of flair. And when he was really, really good, I mean, look, Carlos Martinez was an all-star. Carlos Martinez was really good in 13, remember, out of the bullpen.
Yep.
Carlos was really good as a starter for 2 or 3 years. And okay, if you have a personality and you're doing some things off the field, a team is going to put up with that when you're really, really good on the field. And to me, I don't know if Carlos Martinez ever really changed off the field because that's his persona. And I'm not even saying that's, in a way, that negative. Some aspects of it. But to me, it's more the point of he was no longer helping you on the mound. He was injured a lot, and his performances were not kind of living up to the salary and some of the other things you had to deal with off the field.
Absolutely true. I just brought his name up in comparison to what we talked about Lester and the way he is. Yeah, but he's not here. He's not coming back. People keep asking, what about no? Not going to happen.
It will be interesting where Carlos Martinez ends up, though, because you got to think if he's healthy, he's another guy that, I know this is a cliche, but sometimes you just need a fresh start. And I say that from both sides. Don't you think it got to a point where just the marriage between the Cardinals and Carlos Martinez, they just needed a divorce, right? It just wasn't working here anymore. And I think if Carlos Martinez is healthy and he goes somewhere else where he can pitch in a role that he prefers, it wouldn't surprise me if he's pretty good for another couple of years.
Well, I think there's still an upside with him.
He's not old.
He's if he can keep from, getting injured. I mean, he's got a thumb injury. It's an odd thing, right? It's not an arm-shoulder problem that we're aware of that he has. Somebody's going to take a run at him, and they'll probably, and I say probably, be rewarded by taking a chance on him. He's not going to get, what was it, $18 million that he was expected to get if the Cardinals pick up the option. I mean, he's not worth that risk right now, that amount of money as a risk, but he'll get a contract and he'll have an opportunity to pitch himself back into that type of dollar situation. He has ability. Look, that's why it's so frustrating as a fan of, when you're a Cardinal fan right now, you go, this guy you see the ability from time to time, and he can dominate from time to time, but it just wasn't consistent.
By the way, happy birthday, Carlos Martinez. I was looking up his baseball reference. He turned 30 years old today. Think about that. The man is only 30 years old. I could see him getting a Michael Wacha type contract. And I say that because, Michael Wacha, I think early on, same with Carlos Martinez. Now Carlos got paid. Don't get me wrong. He got a nice contract.
He got a good contract.
He got 5 years, $51 million. But Michael Wacha was really good early. And then towards the end, as he's hitting free agency, he has to kind of find a job with the Mets. And now he's been pretty good with the Rays. But Carlos Martinez, as a 30-year-old, so he's next year entering his age 30 season, super motivated. He's probably going to get a 1-year deal for not that much money, but with the chance, if he's motivated, he's healthy, to get another nice, potentially 2 or 3 year deal after that if he pitches well next season.
He'll get an opportunity, and he has the potential to earn a big contract still with his arm. I mean, he just does. As long as he doesn't have shoulder or elbow problems, he has that ability to, and there could be not 1,000, there could be a bunch of teams lining up to go, hey, you know what, why don't you come on over here for a year and see what you can do? I mean, the San Diego Padres right now would take Martinez in a heartbeat and punch him in today and go pitch, buddy. We need arms. There's enough teams in Major League Baseball that are, starving for healthy arms that they'll get it. He'll get his opportunity.
On the text line, 855-282-8255. Get your texts in on the Cardinals. Joe Booz Rum says TJ McFarland and Luis Garcia seem to be benefiting from the Molina magic. Splashback says bringing Lester or Happ back can't be prohibitive of getting a younger, more viable option. I wonder, though, in the starting pitching realm, if you start to do the math. So I think everybody agrees you need to go get a shortstop, right?
I would think so.
Okay.
I do, but again, what happens if Edmundo Sosa has an unbelievable playoff run? That narrative's going to change. I didn't say I like it, but that'll change because he has done some positive things. I'm not sold he's the end-all, be-all with all the other shortstops that are available. But I agree with you.
I just don't think – I love his upside. I don't think he's proven enough right now to depend on him if you could get someone like Corey Seager. And I also think that if Edmundo Sosa, if he and, let's say, Tommy Edman are your super utility types, you got a pretty good team. I think your team is much better if Edmundo Sosa and Tommy Edman are guys who are, especially Edman, he's going to play most games. But if Edmundo Sosa is your super utility infielder type, you got a pretty dang good baseball team.
I like that. Yeah, I agree with that. Again, I think they still need a shortstop, but we'll see what the Cardinals do. We've seen a number of shortstops have good half years and then been given an opportunity in recent, 5-6 years with this franchise and go, well, we're going to give them another shot next year. And then you find out a lot of them can't. Aledmys Diaz was one of those guys, right? Oh, he's going to be he's going to be really good.
He was an all-star.
He was. And then you found out, well, he's not all that great.
But he's been a good, solid
Paul DeJong is another
utility man.
Put up really good numbers his first couple of years, and he's really tailed off. If I had a choice, like Charlie, I would go get one of those guys. I still think you can connect the dots with Story and Arenado, but we'll see.
Eric in the Central West End on the text line, 855-282-8255. Carlos Martinez will probably sign with Tampa and win the Cy Young next year. Unnamed, give us a name there, buddy, 314. Carlos Martinez got more of a chance to prove himself than any player that I can ever remember. For the years he was here, he produced very little. I will be shocked if anyone throws money at him. And I have to disagree with that because, first of all, he's going to get a deal. Now, of course, it's not going to be a lot. Is it a one-year deal for $4 or $5 million with incentives or something like that if he's healthy? But let's not forget, though, we know the last 2 years specifically with Carlos Martinez were really bad. We know that. We all know that. 6.23 ERA this year, 9.9 last year. Let's not forget, though, this man was a two-time All-Star.
Mm-hmm.
He was an All-Star in 2015. In 2017, he was really good out of the bullpen in 2013 during that playoff run. He was good out of the bullpen in 2014. Look at his years of 2015, 2016, 2017. The man threw 179 innings, 195 innings, 205 innings, and he's pitching to a 3.01, a 3.04, and a 3.64 ERA those years. He won 14 games. He won 16 games. He won 12 games, and he was a two-time All-Star. Let's not forget, Carlos Martinez was actually really, really good for the Cardinals for 4 or 5 years.
I agree with that 100%, and he saved their bacon in 2019 as a closer down the stretch. Now, there was a couple times he blew up, but, hey, every closer blows up at some point. There's no doubt about that. But he saved their bacon in 2019, and the numbers as a starter were really good in those years you mentioned. Here's the thing. He had the name put on him. He was going to be a star. He was going to be the bell cow of the rotation for years to come. He never became that. We were calling him Little Pedro, right? You can't living up to that expectation is next to impossible. And that's the perception everybody wanted him to be. He just never became that. The last 2 years, frustrating as all heck. I mean, there were times this year he blew up, but then remember he had a stretch of like 4 or 5 games. You went, wow, this is the guy you want out there. Yeah, okay. And then it faded out again. So to say he's awful, no. To say he failed at times, yes. But you have to give him credit for being really good at other times.
Yeah, I do think overall, though, I think the narrative around Carlos Martinez is worse than the production. And I understand because, as you mentioned, if the expectations are Pedro Martinez, then that's almost impossible. But when you look at the numbers, he was actually very good for 6 years. He was good from 2014 to 2019, as you mentioned, when he had 24 saves for the Cardinals. His first year, okay, he only threw 21 games. But for the next 6 seasons, until he was bad, the last couple years, 2020, 2021, Carlos Martinez was a really good pitcher for 6 years for the Cardinals. So I do think the narrative around him is worse than how he actually produced.
Yeah, that's 100% fair. There was so much around him. You could point to this is positive and that's negative. And I know people are like, yeah, he was this and that, and he colored his hair and all. Yeah, If you're productive, you don't care, right? Does anybody care that Francisco Lindor's, bleach blonde in his hair? No, because he's productive. When he's productive, no one cares. Was anybody caring when they did the home run train where Carlos was throwing water and guys? No, it was fun and things were going great. Mm-hmm. The minute it flips, then it's like, yeah, that's a little immature. You got to grow up a little bit, buddy. That's just what it is.
On the text line, 855-282-8255, Kyle says, over a 3-year span, Carlos Martinez was one of the 20 to 25 best starting pitchers in baseball. Let's see. Kyle also says, what do you guys think the chances are that the Cardinals' internal plan is to go into next year with Sosa and DeYoung battling for the shortstop spot, with maybe the thought that Edman finds his way there when Gorman is ready for second base? I don't think Edman, though, profiles as a shortstop, if that's what you're asking. And also, I brought this up because the initial question was about the starting rotation. And the texter said, okay, if you go and re-sign John Lester, that means you can't say, okay, we're not getting anybody else in the rotation. And that's where, start to do the numbers, though. Okay, Waino's going to be back. We all know that.
Yeah.
Flaherty's going to be back. We all know that. We're talking about guys also
Health-wise.
under contract. Yeah. Miles Michaelis is going to be back, and there are health concerns. Dakota Hudson's going to be back. There are health concerns. Okay, well, that's 4, where if they're healthy, those are spots in the starting rotation. So, okay, you bring back a Lester. Lester's also not a guy who's going to want to pitch out of the bullpen. What I'm trying to say is I don't think the Cardinals are going to go get a big-time starting pitcher this offseason. I don't think that's where they're going to focus their money.
I wouldn't think so, but there were a couple, the year they tried to get David Price, they had a lot of good arms already in the rotation. And right now, by the way, you're probably going, thank you, Boston, for coming in the last 24 hours. You get stuck with the contract with, when he was hurt. But if I am the Cardinals, I would not be afraid, and this is me talking, not the Cardinals talking, I would not be afraid to go out and get another really good arm. Because it's been proven this year, right? You can't have enough of them, no matter what. If you get another one, fine. I'll find places for guys to throw.
They also don't have the same depth that we thought they had in previous years. And I understand. Look, Daniel Ponce de Leon was released yesterday. But for a couple years there, you looked at the Ponces of the world and the Austin Gombers of the world as your 6th, 7th, 8th starters if you needed that. Who are they now? Is it Oviedo? Is it Jake Woodford? Either way, you're not loving those options.
No, they're just
right now.
Right now, no, they're not. And the other option, which will be knocking on the door next spring, I don't know where he's at. I'm not. I wouldn't be ready for him now, but next spring, Liberatore will be knocking on the door. Yeah, how good is he in spring? And look, we've been through enough spring training to know that guys get injured. They don't throw well. Other guys do. There's a lot of wild cards to take into.
Don't you think that's the Cardinals' MO, though, is let's just say they bring back Lester. You can never assume health, but just for this little exercise we're doing, let's say that Waino, Flaherty, Michaelis, Hudson, and Lester are all healthy through spring training. It would be the Cardinals' MO to allow Matthew Liberatore to compete for a starting spot in spring and lengthen him out. At this point, though, I don't think he goes back to AAA. You put him in the bullpen. And then the first time you need somebody, because one of those guys is going to get injured. And that's when Matthew Liberatore is inserted into the starting rotation. And before that, he can be a length guy out of the bullpen.
It's an interesting watch. And this is the thing with most pitchers compared to position players in terms of the way franchises look at them. If you got an arm and he can pitch here, get him here. Because use all the bullets because he's going to get hurt, right? Use the bullets before he gets hurt. Whereas with position players, it's let's pull back on the service time and see if we can buy one more year. You never, at least I don't think, you have too many organizations that go, oh, he's an arm, he can throw. Well, get him here. Don't let him throw down there. Don't waste 50 innings down there when he can come up here and help us. Jordan Hicks is that kind of guy. He definitely deserved to be here, but it was like he had never been below A-ball, Peoria. Once they got him to spring training, I said, no, he needs to be here and getting guys out here rather than pitching down there.
And I agree with you because all these teams, if they can, they want to manipulate the service time. I 100% agree with that. But the other thing with position players versus pitchers is, and the Cardinals have done this for years, I truly believe it benefits the pitcher to get them big league reps, big league innings, even if it's in the bullpen. Whereas if you're a developing position player, I don't think it benefits you to sit on the bench and maybe start one game a week and pinch hit twice versus getting 5 plate appearances every night in AAA. I don't think it helps your development to be like for Nolan Gorman. We all know it makes no sense. Could Nolan Gorman be the Cardinals' 26th man on the roster right now? Sure, absolutely. But you bring him up, you start his clock when he's going to start because he develops better getting 5 plate appearances a night at Memphis and seeing pitching every day as opposed to sitting on the bench 70% of the time.
Agree with you on that one 100%.